All right. So, welcome to the stream. Like the title of the video says, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard the remark that Dr. Umar made about the selection, the poor selection that our sisters had, and I just had to make a video to react to this. I believe a lot of black men did, a lot of channels did, because again, the simple message that black men are trying to convey once again goes unheard or falls on deaf ears. So I'm going to try my best to give my perspective on this. Hopefully the setup is okay. Try to adjust the setup. This is the first live I'm making, the first video. So hopefully it gets better over time. Hopefully it's decent for this time around. So before I start, I want to make something clear. The premise of all the videos that I intend to cover, if I do this for a long time, they're based on three things. Number one, to look at things for what they are and call them by their name. This is the first thing. The second thing that this channel is going to be based on is the outcome. What are we trying to do with whatever conversation that we're having? What is the end goal? And the third thing is to look at the world for what it is and not what it should be. Because if we're trying to go somewhere, then we need to know where we're going from. Okay. If you want to plot a destination, if you want to plot a course, you need two things. You need a point of arrival, and you need a point of departure. But we need to know where we are to understand where we're trying to go. If we don't know that, it doesn't matter where we're trying to go, we'll always be lost. Okay. So without further ado, the first thing I want to show is this little video right here. I'm clearly new to this internet space, all this, this podcasting. So I try to find videos or clips that clearly describe best what I'm trying to say. So that way people don't say I put words in people's mouth, because you're going to see people say it themselves. But I want people to listen to this in the beginning. This is going to be very important for the rest of the video.
You might be thinking, these two circles are not equal. I repeat, these two circles are not equal. One is in fact larger than the other. What I need you to do is determine which one that is. So, please raise your hand if you believe the blue circle is larger than the red. All right. Please raise your hand if you believe the red circle is larger than the blue. All right, very good. Now, before I said anything about these two circles, what was your first instinct? Equal, right? Because they look equal. And the reason why they look equal is because, in fact, they are equal. These two circles are identical. Yet I got just about every one of you to raise your hand and say that they're not. So what did we learn? That you can be manipulated like that to believe in something that goes against your natural instincts. Just imagine as a child you're taught that the blue circle is larger than the red. If you say it enough times, you convince yourself that's the truth. If you're told the lie enough times, it becomes part of your reality. And if enough people are taught that lie, that the blue circle is larger than the red, well, now it becomes part of the culture. And if that culture then passes that misinformation along to the next generation, well, now it becomes tradition.
What's important to remember here is when he says, if you tell the lie enough time, it becomes part of the culture. And if you pass along that information to the next generation, then it becomes tradition. The counterclaim I want to make to the title of this video, when Dr. Umar went on the podcast, the Daily Wrap-Up Crew, I believe, and he went on there and said something about how basically black men are to be held accountable. It's the black man's fault that the black women chose poorly. I'm going to let Dr. Umar say it himself.
So and what I also tell black women, if you're going to go get you an African man from the continent, you're going to have to understand that the way in which you talk to black men in America will not be tolerated over there.
Why the fuck is it tolerated? It's not tolerated here. That's what we're trying to tell them.
Well, over here, I want to say this to us, though, because we try to act like the way sisters treat us doesn't have a history that we are not at least partly responsible for. Let's be honest. The black woman has had to hold down the black house by herself, although imperfectly. She's had to do it by herself since the mass incarceration of black males began in the 1970s. So when his sister says, I don't need a man, because she couldn't find one strong enough to hold her down. Or when you meet a woman and you say, sister, I'm strong enough to be your man. You ain't got to work or you ain't got to pay the bills or whatever. Pull back, I got you. And she can't do it because all the other men before you who disappointed her. So what I'm saying is, black men, we got to be patient with our women because we created that personality.
We have to be held accountable for their poor selection.
No, you have to be held accountable because they have a poor selection.
And this is what I want to deal with today. See, here's the main issue I have with this so-called statement that black men should be held accountable for the poor choices. He opens the statement saying that if you're going to deal with the black men who are about something, that are trying to do something, you're not going to be able to talk to them the same way, referring to the black men on the African continent. So he already knows and admits that it's not really an issue that you can't find a black man that's about something. Is that even if you do, you don't know how to conduct yourself, or you don't pick these men, or you don't respect these men in the first place. Okay. And the second part, black men on the African continent had to deal with some of the same bulljob. I mean, France has some of these countries, piling their resources and having them under certain debt and all these things that they had to go through and they're still going through to get it out the mud. Well, the black man doing the same thing here in America, trying to get it out the mud. The difference is, and the question that we're not asking is, well, why are women choosing poorly? Why are women choosing poorly? What is the education that has been passed down that there really was no good selection? Because what I'm trying to understand here is how can he say, because basically he's saying from the 1970s, there was no selection. 1970s, correct? So basically, if you were born between 1952 1992, if you're part of this era of black men who were born in those days and you went through these eras, there was not a single black man amongst you who knew how to read, write, and wear his jeans above his ass correctly like he had some sense. Black women were not able to find one amongst you who had some sense. As if they do not purposefully choose wrong black men. Let me play another clip.
Talk her out of a relationship. You can talk. We do that.
Yes,
we will talk.
I'm gonna say something, and this might ruffle little feathers. I don't think just being a good man is enough to stay in a relationship with them.
But when I say a good man, I mean like he's good. That means all around. That means himself, spiritually, mentally, physically.
That's great.
Healthily, like he's a good man.
That doesn't mean that he's the man for you. And right. Maybe when you're going through these motions of getting to know him, you're realizing, okay, he's a great person, but honestly, I don't fuck with his humor. Like, he could be funny, but he's not funny to me.
And that's why a lot of modern women are getting 40 with 4 cats and no man, because he's a good man, but because he's not funny, you gotta throw that out.
Maybe that's what they're like. Amazing. But shout out to the sister for calling the nonsense out. But this is what we're talking about. It doesn't matter if the black man says something or the black women, for that matter. If she tries to check her own sisters, if it's against the code of the sisterhood, she gets shut down herself. I'm pretty sure a lot of you heard of the sister Miss Shahrazad Ali, I believe, and she spoke on many of the ill behaviors that a lot of our sisters had that were negatively impacting the community as a whole. So now I want to dive into this concept that somehow it is not the black woman's fault for choosing poorly. Let's go back, shall we? Because we seem to forget certain things. You see, when it comes to black men, if I bring you guys back to the situation when PJ Washington chose to deal with Miss Brittany Renner, did we have any sympathy for PJ Washington? No, we didn't. We didn't. Despite the fact that clearly he was a mark, because this woman said multiple times, and the receipts are out there, that, athletes were dumb and they're easy mark. All you got to do is get yourself an athlete. Despite all this information and all this evidence being out there, the reason we clown PJ Washington because he should have known better and should have picked better, but he did not. He got no sympathy. Despite clearly being a mark from my personal opinion, and I believe from the opinion of a lot of people, because she was, the older woman who knew how to game these athletes, by her own admission, nobody cared. Nobody had pity for PJ Washington. You should have known better. Look at the mess Zion Williamson is in right now, dealing with this porn star chick. Ain't nobody got an ounce of pity for him, because you're supposed to know better and do better. And this is the only thing that I believe the guys in the Daily Wrap-Up crew were trying to explain to Dr. Umar, is that there is enough information out there. There is enough good black men out there for the black women to not to be dealing with Pookie Ray Ray and the Ten Tugnificents. That is what they were trying to say. And how about this? Let's look through these numbers. Let's look through these so-called numbers. Now, just a second. I gotta resize everything. Like I said, it is my first train, so hopefully the different panel management goes well. All right. So, this is from blackdemographic.com. Basically, one of the things that Dr. Umar said is the black woman couldn't find somebody to hold her down, right? There wasn't enough black men. There ain't enough black men around that a black woman can look at and say, you know what, maybe he got me right. Because apparently black men can't hold a job, black men can't keep a job, and black men can't make no money. Well, let's look at this. Here it says, we analyze data from the Census ACS Public Use Microdata Sample, or PUMS, from 2019, the latest data available. The hard truth is that there are simply more black women than men. According to these estimates in 2019, so before the pandemic, this is recent, there were 159,000 more single black women than black men ages 25-40. However, among higher income single black millennials, there were just as many black men with mean or average incomes of $50,000 and above as black women in the same income range. This data did not include any salaries over $1 million. Okay, so we're talking about the average folk here. Okay, talking about the average woman who says that she can't find herself a decent black man to work with. The big discrepancy started with salaries below $50,000. There were an estimated 700,000 more single black women than men with salaries between $20,000 and $199,000. There were also an additional 168,000 to 190,000 more women than men making less than $20,000. So now they talk about who had no income, but this is the summary of the observation that they made. Number one, there's an even number of black men and women with high incomes. This is what I want to deal with here. There is an even number of black women and black men with high incomes. So how is it that all these conversations about trying to find somebody that is equally yoked and yak, all this yakking? How is it that you can't find a black man that has a job? If the selection is so poor, how come is it an even number between us, and you can only deal with the guys who, in and out of jail, or can't hold down a job, or they just don't want to work. You keep picking the lazy one. How is it? Because the argument is that the selection is poor. There's none of these guys out there that are available. This is the claim that was made. This is what I'm dealing with. Okay, you go down below. It says black women outnumber black men in every category of education above high school diploma, while black men outnumber women with only a high school diploma, and among single black millennials who did not complete a high school diploma or GED. So in other words, you do have more black women who are educated, but somehow black men are still getting out the mud and still having a comparable income. So the black man is hustling. He's not just out there doing nothing on average. He's out there working. That's what he means. Okay? Now let's look at another statistic. African American employment ages from 25 to 64. This is why I spoke about those being born between 1952 and 1992. Okay? In this pie chart, you have 66% of black men who are employed. 6% unemployed, 27% not in the labor force. Around the same for the women. If you look down at the explanation, it says in 2017, about 73% of black men ages 25 to 64 were in the labor force, including 66% who were employed, 6% who were unemployed, and 1% in the armed forces. This compares to the 83% of all men nationwide who are in the labor force. Remember, there was a mass incarceration in the 70s. So naturally, you're going to be a bit behind. People who are not in the labor force or not looking for work for various reasons, including full-time school, disabled, homemaker, incarceration. So even if I give you the worst scenario, even if I were to give you that all this 27%, this is not guys in full-time trade school, looking to be a plumber, electrician, and all these things. I'm going to give you that all of these guys are in jail. Even if I give you that. 2 out of 3 men from guys that were born between 1952 and 1992 in 2017 had a job. So 2 out of every 3 black men you met, on average, had a job. So my question is, how is it my fault as a black man that the 2 out of 3 men you fucking ain't got a job? How is that my fault? Because the narrative over the years has always been this: black man ain't doing nothing, and about nothing, ain't trying to be nothing. Come to find out over the years, if this is the statistic we have today, that means these guys were building themselves throughout the years. This doesn't just happen overnight. It means that just like many other groups, our men were striving, they were working, they were hustling, but unfortunately, there were maybe not the favorable picks, because that is just not who our sisters were attracted to. Now, be it right, wrong, or indifferent, that is not an excuse, that is not a reason to say that there were a poor selection of men available. This makes no sense. In this piece of information, okay, full-time wage and salary workers, source Bureau of Labor Statistics, second quarter 2022 averages. So now we went through COVID. A lot of you independent, don't need no man, yak. A lot of people lost their job. A lot of intelligent people lost their job, particularly in the tech industry. Median weekly earnings by age. Let's look at what I guess what is the most important for us right now, because we're now dealing with a lot of older women who's been through the ringer, and now you're trying to look for a decent man. 25 years and over men, $991. 25 years and over women, $867. So for all this talk about black men ain't doing nothing, black men still making more money, at least according to this information. So this concept, this whole narrative, this is what I played the first video earlier, when they talked about how if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes part of the culture. And if you pass along this information to the next generation, then it is essentially, how do you call it? It is tradition. And the tradition that we have going on right now is that black women literally believe that black men ain't about nothing. Unfortunately. where it is clearly a lie. The same way we were told for 30 plus years that, oh, you know, men fear commitment and the only thing they want to do is have sex. Come to find out that 80% of divorces are initiated by women. And it turns out that all this talk about, you know, women saying stop sexually objectifying us and all this crap. Well, women turns out to be the one who can't keep their legs closed because they're the one who literally opened the floodgates to changing the fluctuation in the sexual marketplace. Let's be real. When I say the word OnlyFans, you're not thinking about content creators, you know, somebody baking cookies. The first thing that came to your mind is probably some women selling ass and titties or getting her back blown out on Tuesdays for some money, for $9.99 a month or whatever the price tag is. That's what came to your mind. So now we understand that, you know, all this feel-good Kool-Aid because we want to pander and we want to keep telling them, oh, no, it's okay. We want to keep moving the scale back. We want to keep moving the goalposts to give them an excuse to say, oh, no, there's nothing wrong. Even I'll bet, you know, they did it poorly. You know, they did it under very difficult. They were under very strenuous conditions, and that's why they chose poorly. No, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. Because when black man chose poorly, we tell him out straight. You should have dealt better. If a black man is walking around talking crazy, talking about, I don't want to deal with no single mom, and he goes out and marries one or impregnates one, well, guess what? You get exposed. You get exposed. And another thing, to all the other men that co-signed this nonsense, my question for you is this. Where are these women's rings? Why aren't you marrying these women? Dr. Umar, where is your wife that, albeit imperfectly, held the black house down? Where is she? I'm not seeing you put a ring on her fingers. And that's the thing. You can talk a good game all you want to. At the end of the day, the only check you can take to the bank is what you choose to do. This is why I said in the beginning, the premise of this channel, the premise of analyzing this video is to look at things for what they are and call them by their name. And what this is that you have black men who are out there hustling. And if you can't find them, that just means that you're not looking for them. Okay? Let's look here. Where are the black men with jobs? Ain't that interesting? All right, what's the year? Okay, 2017. All right, pre-COVID again. Nationwide, there are 93 black men with full-time jobs for 100 black women with full-time jobs. What's the question we've been hearing for a while? Where did all the good men go? Well, this is it right here. You're choosing not to deal with these men. There's a reason why when you hear these the passport brothers, you know, I know they've get a lot of visibility in the past year or so. You can't travel if you're broke. Shit, you can't even leave your state if you're broke. Because clearly at some point in time, these men were nearby. They were around you. But that's not who you chose to deal with. And to prove that point, I have a very simple question. Who you fucking? Who are you fucking? Was the last man you dealt with, did you fuck a good man? Or was it a pookie, nug, and tugnificent? You see, when you go to the bank to get a loan, right? Let's say you're trying to buy a house. Okay. What do? They look at your credit score. And your credit score is essentially the diary, the history of your financial decisions and how you handle your responsibilities. And from that, they decide and say, you know what? This is how much we can lend to you. This is how much we're going to deal with you. Here's the for how many years you're going to have to pay us back. The how do you say it in English? Amortization, I believe. Yeah, that's the word. Amortization. Okay. 25 years, 30 years, whatever. When I ask the question, who are you fucking? That is essentially the same question as pulling your coochie score. Who have you been dealing with? At what institution have you been borrowing dick for the past 10 to 15 years? Have you been borrowing dick from the quote unquote good black man with a job, working institution? Or you've been dealing with Pookie Nug Nug, felon, little or young something institution? Let's be real. If you pull out the curriculum vitae, the CV of the man you chose to deal with, are the majority of these men, quote unquote, good men? Nowadays, we're talking about body counts over 20, 30 is just supposed to be the new norm. My question is, out of these 30, 50 men you might have chose to have sex with, how many of these men would be potential candidates that you could bring home to your mother and say, you know what, that is a decent guy, and you know, he could be the father of my children? How many of these guys? How many of them in there? See, this is the question that we're not asking in this conversation. And this is why in the Daily Rapper crew, they were saying, why are you trying to hold a black man accountable? Because she's not choosing these black men. 93 black men with full-time jobs over for every 100 black women with full-time jobs. See, you can't complain about something you're not even investing yourself with. Talking about ain't no good man, and that's not who you fucking. It makes no sense. That's like black man saying, I don't want to deal with a single mom, and then he gets a single mom pregnant. See, we don't have any problem understanding how stupid it sounds when men do these things that are contrary to their beliefs. But when a woman does it, we have this ability to do all this mental gymnastic to justify it and pander to this delusion, this cuckoo world they have in their mind that, oh no, none of it is their fault. Because if you listen to them, according to Dr. Umar, according to a lot of these women out there, they ain't do nothing wrong. They don't do nothing wrong. It's their body, their choice, but somehow it's not their responsibility. Make it make sense. Okay. So now that we've dispelled this concept that ain't no man with a job, that the black man can't keep a job, now that we know that these guys are out here, what happens when you do see them? Okay. What happens when you do see a black man that has a spine? Well, let me give you an example of what happens. You guys remember the story, right? This restaurant owner, this is why you got to keep receipts, because people tend to forget shit. There was this restaurant owner who basically, during COVID, opened a restaurant to give, his people an experience, and look at what he had to deal with. Let me just make sure. I think I'm going to have to resize. Hold on. I think I had to do this. I think it was better. Yeah, it's better like. All right. Let me play it.
A Texas restaurant owner is responding after video of him yelling at customers went viral.
All this twerking, take it to Prime, take it to Pink. Don't bring it here because we're a restaurant. If you want to do it, get the f out my restaurant, because I did it for our people and I did it for our culture.
It started with some customers standing on furniture and twerking. Music played inside True Kitchen plus cocktails. Owner Kevin Kelly says before the viral video was recorded, he asked the women to stop dancing and sit down. The viral video shows him addressing the whole restaurant, saying he invested a lot of money into it so that black people can have somewhere nice to go and feel good. The video spread quickly online, many saying Kelly addressed the situation poorly. He later posted on the restaurant's Facebook apologizing for using salty language, but not for calling out the women. He also posted other videos showing what the women were doing and how workers and management responded before he addressed the whole restaurant. Katie Johnston for CBS 11 News.
Listen.
You see, now let's look at what he actually said. She mentioned that he had a conversation prior before going off. See, this is what happens. When the black man tries to do something, to explain something, and he keeps being, at some point in time, it is natural to have some kind of frustration. Of course, you're going to get fed up at some point. So you're going to have a natural reaction, and you might lose your shit. Hey, we're human creatures.
I invested a lot of money into buying this building, into developing this concept, so black people can have somewhere nice to go to, okay? Somewhere where we can feel good about ourselves as a... Come on, stop the music, please. Somewhere where our people can feel good about ourselves as a culture, okay? Yeah. No, real talk. And so all this twerking and shit, take it to Prime, take it to Pink, don't bring it here because we're a restaurant. And so beyond that, 75% of my customers are ladies. And I want men to show respect for themselves for how they carry themselves here. So how can I tell the men to respect themselves and you guys are twerking on glass here? If you want to do it, get the fuck out my restaurant. Because I did it for our people and I did it for our culture. So don't do it now. Don't do it again. I don't want to hear it. If you don't like it, get out because I don't need your money. I need to provide something for my people. And don't do it again. Thank you.
Now, could he have used better language? I'm sure he could have. But like the video said, they were asked to stop. See, it doesn't matter if you do have black men who are doing something. You can't check them for nothing. You can't check a black woman for nothing. Did he really need to explain that you're not supposed to twerk on glass in a restaurant? Should he even be in a position to have to say that? This is what we're not talking about here. Should he even be in a position to have to say that? And the sad thing about that is when you do have sisters who want to call out the nonsense, because it's against the code of the sisterhood, they get shut down. They get hounded. You have the other bitter women, the bitter black sisters who come for them and stifle their voices because the black man can't tell you nothing, the black woman can't tell you nothing. Okay? This is what you got going on. Time and time again, we've seen this take place numerous times. You guys remember Michael B. Jordan when he did an interview at for Creed 3 at the red carpet? This is a little representation of what happens. Basically, he had an interview with this girl that he went in school with, and he had to remind her on site, like, hey, yeah, I was the corny kid, right? Now, I understand. Some people thought like, hey, did he really need to do that? But this is what a lot of black men go through. Back then you didn't want me. Now they're all over you. Let me play it. Let me show you what I'm. Let me show you what. You tell me if that's not somebody who's just trying to suck up. Trying to bridge the gap with some poor attitude she had prior to dealing with the same person.
On the Hustle Show, we got Michael B. Jordan, the director and the star of Creed 3. And, we know each other. We go way back all the way to Chad Science in Newark, okay?
The corny kid, right?
No, I did not say that. Misquoted for sure. No, you did not hear me say. I said we used to make fun of the name. But yeah, he is obviously killing things out here. How is the difference between you actually directing and working with the same people that you were directed with versus?
All right, so he's going to basically go through the motions and listen to this.
Oh, man, whatever hotel I'm in, their restaurant.
Well, you're not corny anymore. Well, you're not corny anymore.
Whatever hotel I'm in, their restaurant.
Well, you're not corny anymore.
You heard that? You're not corny anymore. So, guys, this is why I say. This is why I made the claim, the rebuttal. So Umar's claim that there was just a poor selection. And I believe people know that. People know that. And you know who else knows that? Dr. Umar himself. Yes, Dr. Umar himself knows that, unfortunately, too many of our sisters choose poorly and deal with the Pookie Ray Rays and Tank Tugnificence far too much. Now, some of you are probably asking, who are the 10 Tugnificents? I'll tell you who they are. The 10 Tugnificents is Chad, Brad, Tyrone, Raheem, Alejandro, Eduardo, Muhammad, Ibrahim, Wong, and Lee. These are the guys that were blowing your back out for 10 to 15 years getting their plumbing certification for nothing. For nothing. And now you come up in your late years with no relationship skills, no understanding of men, no respect for men, no respect for black men. And now you're talking about you got some standards, you know your worth, you're the table, all this dumb, feel-good Kool-Aid pandering slogan. But at the end of the day, you don't have a plan. How do I know that Dr. Umar knows? Well, I can show you better than I can tell you because he says it himself.
Hoeing around all through your 20s. Stop hoeing around all through your 30s. You give your 20s to the street Negroes. You give your 30s to the pretty boys. They use you up, dog you out. Now you're in your 40s. And nobody's jumping to marry your ass. And so now you're saying it ain't no good black men. No, no, no. There's plenty of good black men. The problem is you gave your best years to men who didn't deserve it. The problem is you gave your best years to men who didn't deserve it. And now you see your biological clock is ticking and your beauty clock. See, you got a biological clock. How long you can have those babies, and you got a beauty clock. How long you gonna be looking good? A biological clock. How long you gonna have them babies, and a beauty clock. How long you gonna be looking good? And guess what? When you hit those 40s, don't get me wrong, black don't crack, but everybody declines. Hoeing.
Which one is it, Dr. Umar? They got a poor selection, or they out there hoeing? This is why I asked earlier, who are you fucking? See, you can't come with a statement saying, hold on.
And what I also tell black women, if you're going to go get you an African man.
You can't come with a saying on one end say, oh, they don't have a lot to choose from. And then on the other, you're going to openly testify that they're literally wasting their years instead of dealing with these good men, which you admit there are plenty around. They're dealing with Pookie and Rary. I didn't say it. You said it. So to pretend that you don't know, to pretend that you do not understand what the black man is trying to explain when he says that he don't want to deal with with picking up the mess, that is disingenuous. And this is where I disagree. This is where Dr. Umar loses me in trying to carry the conversation in terms of the relationship dynamics between the black man and the black woman. Because you have to understand, social media is a weapon. Is a tool of modern warfare. Okay. 15 years ago, we had dial-up internet. Okay. Today, it is a tool that can push a narrative or a conversation of choice. And we have underestimated what we can do with it. Okay. And I do not challenge Dr. Umar's intelligence. I believe in terms of knowledge, and particularly being an historian, he is very knowledgeable. Okay, I want to make it clear because there are some things I do agree with the brother, but in terms of carrying this conversation, in terms of the relationship dynamics and what needs to happen between the black men and the black women, oh no, I don't agree. We're never gonna see eye to eye. If this is your perspective, talking about that it ain't their fault who they're picking, no, it's not gonna work. Respectfully, I'm gonna disagree. Because here is the message that the black man has been trying to say. If you regroup all these podcasts, all these shows, all these reaction videos, here is essentially the message the black man's trying to say. Too many of our sisters keep picking the worst of us, then label these guys as all of us, and then expect the best of us to come back and pick up the mess. What these men are saying is this: I refuse to be the cleanup man. I refuse to be the cleanup man. I'll say it one more time. They pick the worst of us, label these guys as all of us, and then expect the best of us to come back around when you're in your late 30s and 40s and give you the best thing the world has to offer. No, sir. It shouldn't be this hard to understand. And I believe for the most part, this is the simple message black men have been trying to pass around. We're not trying to be the garbage dude. How are you going to complain that I ain't building nothing, but the expectation that you have is that I come back around just to pick up trash? It don't make no sense. So, sorry for having the lady in the video. Like I said, I'm new to this YouTube thing. It was the only video I could find of him saying these words, because again, I don't want to put words in people's mouth. I want you to hear it from themselves. And maybe I'll get better over time. I'm trying to find source videos because it's something I've seen a lot lately, these reaction, and they kind of put themselves in it. So I apologize, sister. I did not mean to put you in there. It's just the only video I found of Mr. Umar saying these words. Yeah. And again, don't just take my word for it for what I said today, because this is an open space. This is the beauty of social media. You can have an open conversation. Maybe I approach some of these things from a poor angle, from a bad angle. Maybe there's something that I said that needs to be checked. I am open to this criticism. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything, because if I do, then that means I can't learn anything. But in terms of the claim, this is what I focus on. Don't come to me talking about, oh, I don't like him, or I don't like what I heard. Again, we look at things for what they are and we call them by their name. The claim was that there's not enough black men available. And I believe that they are. I believe that they are. The outcome. What is the outcome that we want? Because at the end of the day, most black men, they want a black woman, and most black women, they want a black man. So we want to be together. But why are we not choosing each other? And third, look at the world for what it is, not what it should be. And what it is what he said at the very end. Stop expecting the best of us to just be there to come back some years later to pick up crap. Anyways, I believe it is to be understood that at some point in time, the black man can have his own frustration. And I don't think it's a lack of masculinity. We are all human creatures. If you've been trying to pass the message along for some time, for 30 plus years, the anthem has been black men ain't shit. All this talk about you don't want no scrub, but you behaving like a damn pigeon. So on this note, you guys be blessed, and I'll catch you guys next time.